Money, money, more money, and you still owe more money. One Metro Atlanta woman, she actually paid a debt relief company to get her debt down, but she found out that they were really only putting the money towards fees. I mean, it is a Better Call Harry situation. I'm Anastasia Olmos with Atlanta News First Investigates. This is Behind the Investigation, and Harry Samler is here to talk about your money and this woman's experience.
Well, when she contacted us and we interviewed her about her debt, it's not something a lot of people want to talk about, because it's kind of embarrassing. This was a situation where she moved to Atlanta for a new job. Her husband also moved with her, but he didn't find employment, and they had debt. And they started falling behind on payments. And you know what? It just snowballs.
Right.
So she got online. She started searching for a company, and she came across one called Turnbull Law Group, and which says it's a law firm. And we'll get into this because generally speaking in Georgia, most debt relief companies, it's illegal to do business here because they can only charge a certain percentage of like the monthly payment of the debt that you owe to collect as fees, and it's just not worth it. But there's a loophole if you're a law firm. Let's go ahead and take a look at the story.
What did you do? You guys didn't settle anything.
The woman on the phone is arguing with an agent who works for a Chicago-based debt relief agency and law firm called Turnbull Law Group.
And all this stuff you guys said and all lies.
She's furious because the majority of her monthly debt settlement payments, totaling $7,700, did not pay off her bills. $6,600 were collected as fees.
Where is my money going?
She doesn't want us to use her name, but she wants to share her story as a lesson. You took a new job here and your husband didn't find work here, so you had only one income instead of two.
Yes.
So how far behind did you fall? Without giving me a number.
About 90 days.
Like millions of Americans, the couple fell behind on several credit card payments. Her credit score was excellent, but with only one income, the minimum payments were too much. What did it feel like when that happened, as you see the bills start going up and you're not able to pay?
Anxiety, frustrated. It brought a lot of strain in my marriage,
In a Google search, she found Turnbull Law Group and signed an agreement that required her to pay 28% of the total debt owed. She doesn't want to say how much, but as an example, let's say your credit card balances totaled $100,000. Under this contract, Turnbull Law Group gets $28,000 in fees. Hold on, because there's a law called Georgia's Debt Adjustment Act, which caps fees at 7.5% of the negotiated monthly payment. But the law has an exemption when it comes to the practice of law. In an emailed response, attorney Christopher T. Turnbull says the exemption applies because Turnbull Law Group is a law firm. He says they are licensed in 37 states and have helped 17,000 Georgians settle $380 million of debt. Liz Coyle, executive director of the consumer advocacy group Georgia Watch, says Georgians can and should try to negotiate directly with the creditors, but says when people lose hope, they'll do anything for help.
These law firms that claim that they're going to help people get out of debt. If they're not following the law in Georgia, almost certainly they're making those people's lives significantly worse, leaving them in even more debt. And worse, because their business model is to encourage the consumer to stop paying the creditor.
The woman we talked to stopped paying her bills and went deep into default. That allowed Turnbull Law Group to negotiate several debts, but $6,600 in fees, she says, was too much. And had she kept going, she would have paid thousands more.
So I reach out to you guys so that way they can put a stop to other people that are struggling like me, not to give out money to these people that they're supposed to be helping us.
All right, Better Call Harry. What happened when you called them?
So we did get responses through email, but what was interesting is when we called the number, the main number, I did not get the Turnbull Law Group. I ended up reaching another company, and it was a debt relief company. Now know that not only is Turnbull under investigation by the state attorney general's office, this debt relief company that was taking the call is also under investigation. So we don't know exactly where this is going to go because the state doesn't comment on ongoing investigations, but it was interesting. So I did ask the owner of Turnbull, I'm like, so why, when I call your number, do I get this debt relief company? He's like, well, it's one of our contractors that takes phone calls from us. And then from there, I guess they field it out. So it's just it's kind of interesting how this works. I'm really interested to see where this goes. But the huge takeaway on this is that you can settle the debt yourself. You can, or there are nonprofits out there. I was just reading about one of them today that don't take a dime from you, or in this case, there was one, and we're going to put all of that. We have all of this actually online, where it'll show you which organizations are nonprofit that will help you negotiate the debt and get this resolved without you paying, 28% of the actual debt that was originally owed.
So
I mean, it's nuts.
Would you say it is an initial red flag if you have to pay in order for debt to be addressed?
I would say, listen, debt relief in general is a red flag to a consumer investigative reporter like we are. It's unless it's nonprofit. That's why I went to Georgia Watch. They promote legislation in Georgia that helps prevent things like this from happening. But again, you've got this loophole. So what they're doing, they say, is perfectly legal. But again, we've got an ongoing investigation. But again, the minute you go on the internet and type in debt relief, that's red flag number one. Now, if you want to go on and type in nonprofit debt relief agencies, now you're doing something different. Just make sure whoever you do work with, if you want to work with someone, is a nonprofit and does have the backing of outside nonprofit groups like Georgia Watch or the Better Business Bureau, things like that.
Okay, great advice for consumers. And, you could always call Harry. You could always send him a tip on his email, because we are constantly looking for ways that we can help our viewers. And if you have something that he should be looking into, just send it on over. Thanks for watching and listening to Atlanta News First Behind the Investigation. Thanks for tuning into Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First Investigates. For more on this story, go to atlantanewsfirst.com and click on the ANF Investigates tab. You can listen to more award-winning investigations wherever you get your podcasts by searching Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First. And tune in Sundays for an hour-long episode of Uncovered, where we highlight some of our biggest investigations that impact our communities.